Joined by some special guests today.
Some special guests.
In studio.
In studio. Very excited.
We are now joined by Carly Helfand and Sara Eljouzi of the Next Woman Up podcast. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
It's awesome being in person. This is our first ever podcast recording in person.
Yeah, even me and Carly don't do this in person, so it's pretty interesting.
No, and you guys have all the legit equipment and the studio.
Yes.
We're getting the star treatment, and Sarah already ruined it.
But yeah, I'm reading Max's home
by almost short circuiting Evan's laptop. But
I told her to move the crane, and then she moved it, and then it hit the cup, and some water spilled. So I'll take a little.
It's Evan's fault.
I'll take 30%. Is that all right?
Yeah.
30. Okay. So
it's all good. We cleaned it up.
Yeah, we did clean it up. So for those that don't remember, we were on the Next Woman Up podcast as we did a collab episode on their show. Now we're doing one on our show. You might remember Carly. Carly was our first ever guest when she was the scouting assistant, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their Super Bowl season.
Correct.
And you might remember hearing from her right before the Super Bowl. So Carly's third encounter with the podcast.
I'm a recurring guest.
Yeah.
Recurring.
Wow.
At this point, very much a recurring guest.
So this is awesome. Sarah, first time. Hopefully not your last time.
Yeah. If you still want me back, I have to read everything.
So we're going to get into some questions with them, then talk a little bit about what's going on in sports this week and, get into our usual type of thing. Max, anything to add before we get into it?
No, let's just get right into it.
Awesome. Do you guys have anything to add before we get into it?
Let's get rolling.
Okay. So we'll start with Carly. Carly Helfand, former scouting assistant of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, co-host of the Next Woman Up pod. So, Carly, you spent time in Tampa, and then Sarah, you were a New York Giants beat writer for 24/7, formerly worked digital operations for the NBA, and also, of course, co-host of Next Woman Up pod, just to give everyone a background. So, Carly, you spent 2 years in Tampa, correct?
Correct.
So, tell us a little bit, remind the people what your day in the life of a scouting assistant looked like for those who didn't catch you the first time here, because it's very exciting stuff.
Oh, cool. Awesome. So, I guess I'll talk about a game day an in-season scenario because our kind of responsibilities look different as the cycle of the season went on. So game day week, we would be in the office at like 7 in the morning. It was like a 14-hour day. We'd get in and immediately start getting to work we had to do. Normally would be pro reports in season because we're working on scouting the guys that would become free agents or just getting in our reports before the season is finished. So I had 3 of my own teams on the pro side. You end up writing about 200 reports, which is a lot. And then you also have your small college team. So I was responsible for a handful of small colleges where I was responsible for writing all those guys, getting the background on them, and predicting what I think they'd become if they were to get into the NFL or, a camp spot, something like that. We'd also just help out with any miscellaneous stuff. So we did a lot of point of attack tapes, which is kind of just a snapshot of what a guy looks like in season. And then we would do we'd help facilitate tryouts as well. So just anything around. And then, of course, COVID added some more responsibilities for our day-to-day.
Gotcha. So just a quick question. When you say like a small college, what defines a small college? Is that not like non-Power 5 mid-major?
Yeah, so it depends. Like Ivy League would go into that realm.
Is that like a student body count is what they like think of as?
So I would say more of like smaller schools where there's less talent, I guess you'd say. So
you're looking more for like a diamond in the rough.
Exactly.
There.
Like more looking for an undrafted free agent type guy.
Gotcha.
Like that would be your diamond if you found an undrafted free agent. Most of these guys are camp bodies.
Gotcha.
That makes a lot more sense. So
yeah.
Sarah, you started off beat writer with 24/7, then went on and did work with the NBA. Tell us a little bit about those experiences and, what you did in those experiences, what you thought of them, and then kind of talk about how you took those experiences and how it helped you, start the podcast with Carly and everything from those experiences that kind of goes into what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I think that anybody who's interested in doing sports, like writing is really your foundation. That's all my mentors told me. So being a beat writer, it's a lot of, on the spot writing, 3 a.m. when games are over. So that really prepped me for like a fast paced environment. And it was covering the Giants and the Mets. So it helped like, the regional experience, getting some local contacts from those teams. And then I transitioned to the NBA where I worked on their digital products. So when you open the NBA app, at the time I worked there, there's an app for fans internationally and then an app for fans domestically. And so you'd work on like what do fans in Brazil want to see versus India versus like New York City, and trying to develop content around that and the NBA's like overall marketing strategy, as well as trying to improve the quality of like their graphics and league pass and whatnot. So it was a really interesting environment. And then as far as like me and Carly's dynamic, we have like our niches. Like Carly's very much like football oriented and I'm basketball oriented, and we ever since we were in high school, we just always talk about our love for sports and like bond over that and wanting to bring that like female aspect and like the side to it. So it's cool to talk about something when you're 15 years old and now we're 25. So it's like it's pretty crazy, I think.
No doubt.
Absolutely. I mean, like, so my question is, because obviously Evan and I no jobs yet. He's still in school.
Right.
I'm doing other stuff. But what is it like interviewing for one of these jobs where you're like going up to like a well-known network where you're writing every day, or the NBA, or you're working for an NFL organization? What is one of these interviews like? Is it daunting at all?
I think we should answer separately because we both had daunting interviews, but so different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can start, and then you should definitely talk about the interview you had with ESPN and that like crazy how they
talk about that.
Yeah,
that was crazy. Interview.
But I'll start. So I'll talk about my interview for the Bucks. So they flew me down to Tampa. It was a 2-day interview with four other people, all men, of course. And then they told us in the morning. They had us fly in at night, stay in this hotel, and they said, you're going to meet up in the morning, we'll pick you up. So we get to the lobby, and we look at each other, and we think, well, I guess this is our competition. So, nice to meet you. And you instantly, like, size each other up in that way. And then, so we got picked up. We go to the Bucks facility, and we go into the draft room. We're assigned multiple assignments within those 2 days that we have to complete. One of them was a position group ranking, and it was during mini camp, so we were able to actually look at guys in person and analyze them and evaluate them. We were to present those rankings to the whole scouting department, including the GM, at the end of those 2 days. We also were assigned 2 reports and a point of attack tape, which I had never done before. They just explained it to me, and then we had to write 2 reports in the format that the Bucks write in, which I had also never, because all teams do it differently.
Yeah.
And also, they had like a really interesting mentality they wanted you to take on while you were there. They said, we want you to work as a team, but also compete. Because what they did is they had us in different position groups. So if I knew something more about a wide receiver, like I could talk to the other person about it and kind of like help them out if I wanted to. And then at the same time, they wanted us to all go and leave as a group. So you had to kind of check on each other, like how far along are you with your work? Which is weird when you're competing. So it was very like interesting dynamic, and it kind of like is an interesting way to like psychologically affect you during your interview process.
That sounds a little hostile, honestly.
It was wild. I mean, but that's like the environment you're in. It's this high intensity.
Yeah.
Like even though you're on a team with someone you work with, you're honestly competing always for that next spot.
To move up within
exactly.
the team. Yeah,
right.
No, absolutely.
And that's kind of, I think, what they wanted to have play out in this like microcosm of those 2 days.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Sarah, did you want to touch on your
Yeah,
experience?
I'll do like the ESPN one and the NBA one. So when I was in college, I had an ESPN interview, and I was only a freshman, so I was very like unprepared, but I was still like excited about it. And I get to the interview, and he goes, "What would you rank your like strongest sport that you know the most about to like the least?" So I'm like, okay. So I'm like NBA, then I went college basketball, then football, then baseball or golf. And he goes, okay, so right after I answered the question, or I said baseball, right after I answered the question, he starts asking me, like, every baseball statistical question you could think of, because I said that was my least knowledgeable. So it's like a mind game, and then he just, like, went off, like, what is this pitcher's ERA? What's this? And it's like, in 1992, like, who won this award? And I, like, just clueless, like, I was a freshman. And it really just showed me, like, And I remember I talked to Anish Shroff, who's a very well-known guy on ESPN, and he gave me advice one day. He was like, everyone, when they do sports, they think of, like, if I know the NBA and if I know NHL and NFL, I'll be fine. But he's like, if you want to work for ESPN, you have to know golf, you have to know lacrosse, you have to know all these little, like, niche sports. And I think not a lot of people think about that. Like, you ask the average person for, like, lacrosse stats or golf stats, like, they're not really going to know. And so he told me, like, that's kind of how you can differentiate yourself when you want to work for an organization like that. So since that interview, I obviously, like, brushed up on my knowledge. I knew what I had to do. And there's even a test that they gave me, an aptitude test. It was about a half an hour. And it could range from, like, simple questions to, like, point to where the three-point line is in the court. And then, like, who won the NBA MVP award in, like, 1980-something. So you can take some aptitude tests. And they watch you, so you can't, like, search anything, and it's timed. And then at the NBA, they ask you, like, some questions to get a general sense of your knowledge, like, what were the teams Shaq played for, like, things like that. And then they'll ask you, like, kind of strategy questions, like, if you could make your own ideal team of 5, who would you pick, and then give your reasons, like, why, and try to get in your head about it. So, but the ESPN was definitely the most intense, because they're obviously picking your weakness and then immediately, like, harshing on it. So that really was, like, a wake-up call for me, honestly.
What was your team of 5?
I don't remember. This was literally so long ago, but I remember being so nervous.
If you were gonna make one right now, what would your team of 5 be?
No, that's too hard. I can't do it on the spot.
You can't do that on the spot.
Yeah, but it's like you already know, like, at least 2 or like 3.
Okay.
Like, you already know, like,
Yeah.
probably Kobe, LeBron, and Michael are gonna be on that team.
No, they wouldn't.
LeBron and Michael wouldn't be on the team?
No.
On your team of 5 for
No.
all-time
It's
NBA.
our starting 5. It's
So-
not
It's
like
my starting. It's not
yeah.
Evan's starting 5.
it's not right. Yeah.
I
It's
was
not
assuming.
Evans.
Can we, so let's hear yours first, and I'll go with mine, since you have this crazy idea in your head of who you're starting.
Oh, it's crazy.
I want to hear the
Wow,
crazy.
she came at you.
No.
I want to hear it.
Guys,
What's your
before he
starting
came
5?
on, Carly was like, "You and Evan are gonna fight," so I'm being a little like I'm pugnacious right now.
Why'd you
but-
think we were gonna fight?
Evan's
Bizarre.
feisty, but
I didn't say. Well,
Like funny, like
funny
debating.
fight.
Oh.
Debating.
Oh, okay.
She likes to be fresh.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're not gonna actually sit here and fight, but
Okay.
Take that outside.
no dropping.
That's
gloves.
by the way, before I do say my starting 5, that's a crazy, like, interview thing.
what?
Oh,
Like, you're, the ESPN, like,
ESPN
that-
wasn't that
that's a
so
that's yeah, that's a
wild?
crazy
Hostile.
He
dynamic.
was like, "Oh, that's your weakness," blah blah. And I'm like, "Oh my god!" I like cried. I was like gonna cry. I like muted it and was tearing up. Like, did not get that. Okay, anyway.
So I think I want to do point guard last.
Why would you do that?
I don't
Because
know.
Evan's
That's
team.
not how you. Okay.
Yeah.
You build a team around the point guard. What does Evan do? I want it last.
Evan's team.
I do. That's why, because it's so important. I want to think about
Alright,
it a
alright.
little longer.
Okay, sure.
Um,
Sure.
So my shooting guard's gonna be Michael. My small forward's gonna be LeBron. My power forward's Kevin Durant. My center is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and,
Wow.
and or Wilt Chamberlain, but probably Kareem. And then my point guard.
I guarantee he goes Rondo.
No, that's such.
That's his favorite
Yeah,
player.
no, I do love Rondo, but it can't be Rondo. It would probably have to be. This is so hard.
It's so hard. That's why I said you can't put me in the spot.
Point guard's the one that I struggle with the most because I can never like definitively decide
Yeah.
who I want.
That's so
at
true.
point guard.
It's so hard to know who to build your franchise around.
Do you agree with that? Point guard would be the hardest to like.
Yeah, because people always ask me in debates, like, oh, who would you build a franchise? And they give me, like, the top 5 point guards. And I'm like, I don't, it's just, depends on other pieces.
I'm gonna go with Allen Iverson as my
Wait,
point
that's
guard.
who I was going to choose.
I was actually about to say that as well. I'm gonna say you should go
Wait, that's who
Allen
I was gonna
Iverson.
choose.
Yeah,
What is this? You can't agree. You're not.
He's
I know,
insane.
this is weird.
I mean, I love Allen Iverson. He's awesome.
Would you pick, you wouldn't even consider Steve Nash if you could pick anybody?
Steve Nash is definitely in the
That's
conversation.
what I was, because I was thinking about that.
He's
But,
totally in the
You
conversation.
can have one alternate of your 5. We should allow that. Like an alternate.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a 5
like
and
a
an
sub,
alternate.
like a little,
An alternate.
I'd put Kobe deserves to be on the team.
You think?
Kobe didn't.
I absolutely
You
do.
didn't choose him.
I
huh?
Hot
believe
take,
Kobe.
Ev.
Yeah, but like I needed Michael and LeBron
You
at 2 and
needed
3.
them?
100. I needed them. Yeah.
Actually, let me think of who I would change on your team because I feel like you have a very solid team. I feel like I actually like your team a lot. If we were picking like current NBA players, I'd go with Dame, obviously, to start. Obviously.
I'd probably put Dame at point guard too. Dame
Really?
or like Kyrie.
Dame is better than Kyrie.
I think
Dame's
so.
better than Kyrie.
I think so too. They're both Kyrie's better ball
handling
handler.
by
Dame's
far.
way.
Oh yeah, for
Dame's
sure.
way better shooter.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's just that you didn't put Kobe in there, and I would want to put Kobe.
No, I would. I wanted.
I would
to
put Kobe at point guard
You
because he
would?
could play point guard.
Yeah, you could.
Like he literally brought the
So
second
can
half.
LeBron though.
But no, absolutely. But the second half of Kobe's career, that's basically what he did. They
Yeah.
didn't get a point guard after Steve.
Kevin
Nash.
Durant's my point guard.
They just-
I was thinking about, like, when you said center, I was thinking about Anthony Davis, but I was thinking about, like, current players and who I would want. Or Jokic. I'd want Jokic on my team.
All time.
Jokic
He's
is
just
a
too
beast.
valuable.
I mean, yeah,
He can do everything.
his
Like, why would I not want him?
his facilitating skills are unheard of.
That's what I'm saying.
You know?
So that's the only people I'd change. But I think you built such a great team, Evan.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
So
it.
who's yours?
I said who I would change, but like I kind of stick to a lot of the people. Like everyone has like their classics, like a LeBron or Kobe or MJ. But then you have like the ones you would alternate between. Like
Definitely.
shooting guard is tough.
What do you think of my Durant pick?
You said Durant.
He's my power
Yeah.
forward.
Oh, I didn't.
That's a great pick.
I think Kevin Durant is the best scorer of all time.
I was gonna say I actually agree with that, but I don't know if I'd choose him just because my bias against him.
It's fair.
That's very funny.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Anyways, we will definitely get back to NBA talk because that was like
We got it on the agenda.
I enjoyed that thoroughly. So let's get to your podcast. You guys started Next Woman Up. April dropped your first episode April 9th. So tell us like what inspired you guys to start your podcast.
Yeah, so I'll start. Sarah and I, like Sarah said, have always, talked about sports since high school together. Like we've always been the girls in our friend group that know sports, talk sports. So that like always brought us together as a bond. And I think, as women in the sports industry, we've always looked for, a platform that we can feel represented in. And it doesn't really exist that much. Like there aren't that many platforms where the voice of a woman in the sports industry can really come through. And I notice it a lot too. I listen to a lot of sports podcasts and they're male hosts. All of the guests are men. When there's like a ton of incredible women in sports, from players to executives to everything in between, and the fact that they're not like showcasing like those women, I was like, we have to do something about this. So for me, it's that we provide this platform for women in the sports industry to share their voices.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I like that.
Sarah, for you?
Yeah, I think a similar sentiment, but I think that what kind of sparked the idea also was when I feel like me and Carly were so blessed in the sense that not a lot of people can say they really achieved like one of their dream roles out of college. And when me and Carly both achieved those roles, like with the NBA and her NFL role, it felt surreal. Like we're best friends. We dreamed about this in high school, and then we were talking about the dream that was like fulfilled. And then when we did that, I was like, wow, like we can really make a difference. Like we can encourage other people who also had that childhood dream, were able to make it happen too. So it's about, the person who's looking at this and wanting to pursue the same thing, and hopefully giving them some advice, and then like laughs along the way. Obviously trying to make it entertaining, because as a podcast should be, but it's been so fun, honestly. I really love it.
Yeah,
that's
just
awesome.
to build on that, like that's a great point. I think when we were younger, there weren't a lot of women that we could look up to and say like we wanted to. Like there weren't, like when we were kids, there wasn't many like female coaches in male sports, or females like breaking into the sports industry for like male sports. So like to be able to possibly be that role model for like a girl who wants to do that, like that's kind of like
I mean, you were a scout. How many female scouts can you name? I
Right.
can't think of any. I mean, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, totally. So building on that, like you kind of touched on it, but what does it mean to you, Next Woman Up? Like you guys chose that name. What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like,
remember our process of choosing
That's a good
names?
question. We were like, what should our name be? Like we went
You
through
thought of
so
this one,
much.
Carly. So you're talking about how coaches always say "next man up."
Yeah,
Like
so,
in a game.
Exactly. So I wanted to obviously have it be like a sports reference,
Yeah.
and it's always like next man up, and why is it next man up? Next woman up? Like it's the next woman up to fill a role or like break into something or
set the stage.
Yeah.
For what's to come.
I like
Nice.
That's awesome. That's really cool that you
It's a
planned
good
it
name,
out
right,
that way.
guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like the name.
ours was stupid. We came up washed up sports podcast.
No, I
because
like
we're a bunch of
Washed Up
washed up
Athletes.
athletes.
Same.
Did
But-
you like send it to all your friends? Me and Carly were in so many group chats, like trying.
Which
people
one
to-
is better? This
Yeah.
one or this one?
I don't even remember. We didn't send it to people, but
No.
I don't remember exactly.
I
the
think my girlfriend probably gave the check. She's kind of like our manager with that stuff. Be like, this sounds good. This sounds good.
That's
This sounds
amazing.
bad. So
That's true.
yeah.
So you guys have had some really cool guests on your show, to like
We
NBA
have.
coordinators, NFL coaches. What has it been like getting to talk to all these people? Do you guys maybe have a favorite?
Yeah. Do you want to start off with that?
Yeah, I feel like because me and Carly worked in the industry, it was great to have those connections and leverage our connections. We've also done like some cold messages, but yeah, there's all the people that me and Carly have worked alongside and I've admired. And as far as a favorite, that's so hard. Because we've had Coach Lowe was amazing, Sarah Kusok with the Nets. We just had Ashley Shamati with the Hornets, which is great. I mean, Ashley's like an up-and-coming star, so it's a good one. Do you have a favorite?
I don't know. It's just, the thing is, it's so hard to choose, but every guest brings like something different, like different perspective. Like, and also the stories you get from some of these guests. Well, Coach Lowe, obviously, like,
she's
her journey, and also like I got to be on a staff with her, so being able to really talk to her was just incredible. And she's like awesome. Like, her story is insane.
Yeah.
And then of course, like, if we got into like where I learned a lot, we had one of my professors on from Drexel, Dr. Karen Weaver, who's like an expert on college sports. And I learned so much in that interview.
I learned a lot in every interview, I feel like.
Yeah.
People are, like, their stories are amazing. And everyone, like, assumes that if you work in sports, like, you have this path where you, like, had to work in sports before. Something that's not true. Like, some of our guests did something completely different before that. Remember Ashley said she wanted to work with, like, children in the hospital. Babies. Yeah, and now she's the Hornets silent reporter, so you just don't
That's
know.
wild. Yeah, that's wild.
That's so cool.
So you mentioned that you got to interview someone that you previously worked with. Was it weird flipping the roles and being on the question asking side of it? Because I know for me, at least, when we started doing interviews, it was very weird asking people questions and getting to, so like, was that strange for you?
I mean, not really. I think with Coach Lowe, like, so, because like she's the Bucks assistant D-line coach, so like we worked very closely together, and I think like it was just like easy for me to talk to her. She's such like an open person that it wasn't like intimidating or anything, but it is like, I have been like, people have written articles about me and stuff, and like I've been on like the flip side of the interview process. So it's like interesting to have that perspective when doing the interviewing yourself.
Interesting. So what would you say the biggest difference is being on the flip side? Like, do you appreciate the way other people interview you, or do you?
Well, I think you can take what you like and what you don't like. And I also think that Sarah and I like really try to ask questions that are going to lead to like a deeper answer.
More than just like a yes or no answer, or like a quick story or something.
Right, like something that's like an anecdote will come from the question, something that we may never have heard.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, that's our primary goal, to have something, because honestly, like, I feel like a lot of people ask the same questions, like, how did you get started, and who's your favorite athlete, and like, those are fun, but me and Carly try to get like the ones that no one's heard before.
Right, like we interviewed, she is an inside writer for the Bucks, Carmen Vitale. We interviewed her, and I kind of like ad-libbed a question, and it ended up being like this incredible story about her experience with Bruce Arians.
Yes.
And like how like her like meeting him came full circle. It's like a whole story about Super Bowl. You can go listen. It's like, I don't remember
which episode is it?
I don't remember which episode, but it's with guest Carmen Vitale.
We'll link it below.
And it was like an incredible like story, because she talks about the moment she met BA to like the full circle of like winning a Super Bowl with him. And like we wouldn't have gotten her that story if I didn't like squeeze in this question.
Yeah. You call audibles a lot when you're doing interviews.
Yeah. QB1.
I like that. Evan kind of does that sometimes. Usually we have a script, and then he'll sometimes go off interview. Usually when he does, it's good. It's a good idea. Yeah. Usually when he does.
If something comes to me like that, I mean? Like a question that I forgot that I wanted to ask or something like that.
But keeping the conversation going is definitely something that, I don't know, me as an interviewer, I don't do most of the interviews. I find it hard. You know what I mean? To keep on asking questions and having to think in your head, like, what's going to come next. Right. I always find that difficult. So it's interesting to see that, like, it's a little easier for you guys. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that there weren't many role models or female role models in the sports industry when you were growing up. Are there any that in the more recent years that you've had? Maybe someone you previously worked with, or was there anyone growing up that you did look up to that helped you get into the sports world, or in that mindset of wanting to go into the sports world?
Sure. So I know Sarah and I both have some mentors, and I think in general, just like working around other women in the sports world that are like older than me and more experienced, like just being around them has aided in like me wanting to accomplish things and my goals. But I think that like I've like just you just keep like looking for more people to look up to. But also like my mentor is someone that I worked alongside when I was an intern. When I worked for Philadelphia Soul, he was the GM and I was like basically his right hand woman. And like he's been there for me since then because like, you know, I worked my ass off for him, and you know, that's kind of the lesson. You work your ass off for someone, they'll respect you and want to help you. And he was a player in the NFL at some point. So he's like been really awesome for me. And I think you just find people like that along your journey. I also had some like awesome professors in college, and you know, some of them were women, and they had accomplished like the most incredible things in their career, and to be able to learn from them was a huge step in inspiring me.
I like that. Sarah?
Yeah, for me, when I think of like some big names, like Doris Burke was one of the first people that ever made me. Yeah, she's just a legend, and I feel like everyone in basketball just loves her. But and even like industry insiders that I've talked to, like it's so funny because you look at the TV and you don't know these people, and you're like, I hope they're nice. And then I talk to people who actually know Doris on a personal level, like she's lovely, and I'm like, that's amazing to know that she's also wonderful. And then one of my mentors, the Portland Trailblazers silent reporter Brooke Olzendam. I met her at MSG, and I flew to Portland to shadow her, and she was just an amazing mentor. She's a wonderful person, and when you work in the industry, and I'm sure Carly can attest this, not everyone is genuine and has your best interest at heart because it's so competitive. So meeting those mentors like really will make or break your career, I think, personally.
Absolutely. Like, you know, there's the phrase, don't meet your heroes, and sometimes that's the case, but sometimes you luck out and there's some really genuine people. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, when we started, it was probably Pat Lawless, who's friends with Evan's brother, and like they have the front office in their podcast, and they really like reached out to us early on before we even interviewed us, and we're like, "Yo, keep doing this. Like, you're gonna get growth. It's gonna come
nice.
Eventually. Like,
Yeah.
and you guys are doing great work. Like, keep on going."
Yeah.
So it is great
They
to
have
get.
a crazy following.
Yeah, they definitely
They're
do.
like, I think they're like over 5K on Instagram.
Oh damn.
I think. Something
Yeah,
like
but
that
they've
crazy.
definitely been like that for us. I feel like when we started the podcast, they were like, "Hey, like you guys got it. No worries.
Yeah.
Like you guys got this."
it's so important to have those people because sometimes you'll like be stuck in the moment and think, oh, this is going nowhere, and like kind of get down on yourself. But it's important to have someone who's accomplished in what you want to do telling you like, you got this, like, you know, you're good at this, like you have all these skills, like, you know, just stick with it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely the boost of confidence helps. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So, being a woman in the sports industry, it's an industry that, you know, is previously, you know, dominated by men. Is there something you want to say to combat this crazy, insane stigma of women in sports?
I mean, well, it's still dominated by men. I'm going to correct you.
No,
That's a great connection.
Cute.
So
I kind of meant because like, you guys are in it now, so like,
sure.
well,
we're,
but like
we're
I guess
getting there.
it is.
We have a lot more work to do. I always said when people looked at me when I said I wanted to work in sports, and they, you know, they're like, oh, you know, yeah, you want to be like one of those like pretty girls who like, you know, says 5 words. I'm like, no, like I really want to work in sports. And I always said to myself, well, you know, someone has to get these jobs. Why can't it be me? You know, regardless of my gender. You know, it's what your knowledge, your drive, your value, what you bring to a role in an organization.
And it's so funny because I tell this story to a lot of people, but so obviously me and Carly went to high school together, and I was talking to one of my guy friends in high school, and I was like, you know, Carly like really knows her stuff. Like I've never met someone who has such a vision for the field like Carly, and he's like, I mean, how much can she really, like, he just didn't believe me, and he just didn't think that. And I go, no, you're going to see, like, one day she's going to be in a football role. Like, no one can read a field like Carly can. And here we are. But he just looked at me like I was, like, crazy. Like, he goes, maybe she knows a lot for a girl. And I'm like, no, she knows a lot in general. Like, her knowledge is unspeakable. But,
okay, when we off air, you got to tell me who this is.
And so I just think that story just always gets me, and I think it's a good story because it shows that, like, you don't listen to outside voices. I've had people say things to me, too, like some male colleagues, and I just don't listen to it. But, like, my message is just, like, be true to yourself, like, listen to your mentors, and, you know, trust the process. I hate saying that because I don't like feeling it.
And also, you know, I've learned this. I'm in, like, a group with other women who have been in football roles and on clubs in the NFL. You know, create the girls club because it's a boys club right now. The boys help the boys. So like let's help each other, and that's the only way.
Each
like
other up.
yeah, exactly.
Well, one thing I was gonna ask, would you say that it's also on the boys and the men in the NFL, in the MLB, in the NBA to stop the misogyny in hiring and looking for talent? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, do you think? Not do you think? The answer is yes. It is the majority of the problem.
Sure.
So what do you think can actually be done
Well,
to stop that? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, I was so fortunate coming from the Bucks on both sides of the football side. Bruce Arians and Jason Light, who was the GM and my boss, they are so, forward thinking and progressive, and they're so into hiring a diverse staff, and it starts there. And it just starts from the top down where the culture is, and if the owners give the go on letting the coach and the GM do what they want to do, and if the coach and the GM understand how important diversity is and understand that different perspectives, bring a good culture and a winning culture to an organization, then it's in their hands. And I think that's, was important. Like, even though I might have not looked like everyone else in the room, that's a good thing, because I brought a completely different perspective that everyone else in the room doesn't bring.
absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah, and the thing is, you're missing out on talent if you're just not looking for women. You know what I mean? Like, It's not
Exactly.
like people don't, like Sarah just said, it's not like people don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
People know what they're talking about, and they're still not getting jobs. So
Right.
I guess the problem is the people who are hiring.
Yeah, and
You know
I
what I mean?
also, right, like you said, it's converting that like traditional mindset that it's changing, but I feel like a lot of people of power and people of influence in like the big four sports still have that traditional mindset,
Mhm.
and until like that switch is flipped, it's like we're just gonna have to keep pushing with progress.
So do you think once the younger generation, kind of our generation, starts getting into those managerial roles, we'll start to see big shifts compared to
think
now,
so.
where we have like not to be offensive, but like old people who have been in positions of
Yeah.
power for so long, who keep on to their old ways of thinking?
Yeah, because
I think so.
someone has to break the barrier. Like when Becky was interviewing for
Yes,
NBA head
that
coaching
was
roles,
huge.
and she didn't get it, right? And it's like, I think it's because no team wants to take the gamble and like be the first to do it.
Yeah.
But like there always has to be a first. And once
Yes.
you're the first, there's a path. You know?
Right. And like, yeah, you have to have some guts to be the first, but those end up being the most respected people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. History looks back well on the team that took Jackie Robinson. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Broke the color
Absolutely.
barrier.
Absolutely.
Nobody's mad at the Brooklyn Dodgers for that.
Yeah.
Of course.
So
That's a great point.
you make a great point there. What else we got? So before we get into this week's sports news, we like to ask everyone this, but specifically, is there one piece of advice you guys would give to a younger girl, someone in high school, someone in college, maybe middle school, who's aspiring towards a career in sports?
Yeah. Sarah?
I was gonna make you go first.
Okay, I'll go first. I think, like I said before, the biggest thing is don't doubt yourself. Like, if there's a role and you want it, like why shouldn't you get it? I think that's was always the thing I told myself. Well, these jobs are available. Someone has to get it, and that someone can be you. I also think a big thing is do not be afraid to pick up the phone, talk to people, talk to anyone you possibly can. Even if you don't think they can help you, they might know someone that can help you. It's such a cliche, but network, and that is really how we get our roles. And being able to talk to someone is a huge skill. And also one more thing, and this is something that I wish my freshman year college self knew. If there's an event you want to go to, if there's someone you want to talk to, if there's something that you think will help you in your career, don't be afraid to go and go alone. If no one wants to go with you, if none of your classmates want to go with you, if none of your friends want to go with you, just go alone and, take pride in yourself as an individual, and take pride in just keep picking your head up and having courage to go to something alone that can help you with your success.
Yeah, and taking initiative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I really can't echo the networking sentiment enough. I'll share a small anecdote to hopefully inspire others. But I had an interview my sophomore year of college to be an intern for the NBA. And I did not get it, but that's not the point of the story. The guy that interviewed me, I left a really good impression on him, and he really liked me. And even when I didn't get it, I still reached out, still thanked him, still left an impression, kept in touch with him. Lost touch. I get to the NBA. Now, it's years later. Now it's after college. I walk to the mailroom. Who do I see? The same guy that interviewed me. And he remembered me. And So it's whether you get a role or not, like your attitude should always be positive. You should always be thankful to people and keep those connections. Like that was 5 years later, and now he's a mentor for my life. So
Yeah.
you know.
Wow. That's great,
That-
guys.
Yeah.
It's
I love
it's
that.
all about building your network. Anyone is just another like, you know,
Link to
someone
the
that you
chain.
can add to your web.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Especially when you don't need it. It's important to keep those connections even when you're not even looking for a job. You should be reaching out and talking to people.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's a different perspective than I've ever had, honestly. Because obviously you want to network, but just like you just said, like when you don't need a job or when you don't need something,
Oh,
you
yeah.
still get your name out there, still
Yeah.
keep
Oh,
on
yeah.
talking to people
Right.
because you never know when an opportunity is
mean,
going to come.
I'll always, you know, if something in the news, you know, relates to that person. Oh, hey, I saw this.
True.
Thought you'd enjoy this, or like,
Yeah.
you know, the season starting. Good luck this season, or anything that like.
Happy holidays.
Right,
Literally
anything. And then to spur a conversation, they'll ask you what you're up to, and it just keeps that
and
relationship
then people
going.
call you with roles. Like I've had people from the NBA now call me with roles.
Right, they'll
Because
keep
I-
you in mind because they
Yeah.
know, you know,
Exactly.
you're attentive and, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Those are good answers. Most people, when we ask, like, what would you say to younger people who want to do this, they're just like, don't give up, practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was good. Nice detailed answers,
Yeah, I'm
guys.
not trying to, you know, speak like a motivational quote on a poster.
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work
Yeah.
hard. Carly and Sarah, where can the people find you guys?
So you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, Next Woman Up Podcast. And you can always email us with anything that you want to hear about, any questions or inquiries at nextwomanuppod@gmail.com. And all our episodes are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you listen to podcasts, you can find us.
Awesome.
Anything else? Did I miss anything?
No, you got it all.
All right.
So subscribe and follow them everywhere. We'll link everything down
the
below
description.
in the description so you guys can find them as well. Shout out to Rhea over there on the
Yeah.
social media.
Rhea, social
out.
media guru.
Yeah. Rhea's been chilling watching us record today, so shout out to her.
Guys, thanks for coming in. We appreciate you guys
Thank
being
you.
our
Thank you
first
so much.
big in studio guest, you
I
know?
know.
Yeah, it's
I'm
been
so happy.
them and Justin are the only two
Yeah.
people we've had in studio.
Yeah.
We
So-
are honored. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah, it
you
was a lot
so
of fun,
much,
guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the rest of our channel and subscribe. Make sure to follow our Instagram and maybe consider subscribing on Patreon for our bonus content. You can only find it there. I promise it will be well worth it. Thanks.